I'm Luke Beard.
I'm Chris Green.
I'm Riley Gunter.
And I'm Nash Rainey.
And we are the Backups. All right, let's kick into the NFL news. Derek Carr to the Saints, 4-year deal, $40 million a year, I think, or $30 million, $35. Too much money for Derek Carr?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so.
As a Panthers fan in my Panthers attire, I love seeing the Saints make these kind of moves because it's not about, future success. It seems very win now and kind of keep the people in charge, keep their jobs in where they are right now. I just don't understand why the Saints would go through this. They don't really seem like the kind of team in a position to make that just needs a big piece to make a big playoff push. It seems just confusing.
Right. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering where they even got the money to sign Derek Carr for this. It's confusing because they were just bottom of the league in cap space. So where did they get this money from to get Derek Carr?
I honestly think Derek Carr is going to be a good fit there. I think they got good wide receiver talent. I think he might be successful.
Do you think he'll be as successful as your favorite cowboy, Dak Prescott?
No, not as successful.
I like Derek Carr's game still. I really like Derek Carr. It's a $150 million deal over 4 years, $100 million guaranteed. That's what's being said. Derek Carr, I still think, is a good quarterback. I think he's a guy who can lead you to the playoffs if you build a team around him. I don't think the Raiders really built around him, though. They got rid of Amari Cooper. Obviously, some stuff happened. Henry Ruggs not playing. Darren Waller is a good player, and Josh Jacobs, but they don't really build up that receiver core. I mean, Hunter Renfrow is fine. He's not your wide receiver one to go into the future, though. He's a little on the the small side. He's a slot receiver, and he's really good at that position. But I think Derek Carr can thrive on a team like the Saints. He has receiving back in Alvin Kamara. He has a good receiving core. Michael Thomas, if he can stay healthy, he's huge for that team. Solid O-line for them. And then another guy on that receiving core, Chris Olave, very good player, had a fantastic rookie season with Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill and Andy Dalton as his quarterbacks. They're jokes. So it's Derek Carr coming in and really turning that team around is big for them. I think he'll lead them probably to a playoff push. They'll probably win the NFC South against, your Panthers, my Falcons. I just don't think really either of those teams have a chance to stop this Saints team because their offense is so overpowered and they've built up a good defense over the years with Cam Jordan, DeMario Davis. Those kind of guys are really big for that team. So I just can't see anyone else in the NFC South competing with them. I think the Saints are a lock for the playoffs for me with Derek Carr as their quarterback. And then Frank Clark released by the Chiefs. Huge for the Chiefs on defense because they're a team that's everyone's always talking about how they lack on defense, but he's been a consistent player for them. And after that second Super Bowl, they're just letting him go. It's a little weird to me. I don't know what y'all think about that.
I mean, I understand it, of course. I think it's more of it's a money thing above all else. I think there's a lot to be said on that side, and I think the Chiefs really see this as they need to kind of preserve the money they have because they want to preserve the main core that they have. So it really, I think this is when the heads start to roll really in a way that these big key pieces of the team kind of have to be let go just because the money to sustain that team for so long isn't there anymore.
Especially that Patrick Mahomes contract is huge. So. And then Titans are shopping Derrick Henry. I don't really think he's going anywhere. It's just kind of speculation. Teams like the Eagles are up there to get him, the Bills, Panthers, Falcons, just kind of random teams are thrown in there to get Derrick Henry. I think he's staying with the Titans.
Yeah, I think he's staying with the Titans too. He just seems like a good fit there.
I think the Titans honestly should shop Derrick Henry, but they definitely should shop him because you're not going to go anywhere with Ryan Tannehill as your starting quarterback. Let's just be honest here. They traded A.J. Brown last season, and it's just you don't know where the team is going in the future, so why not?
I mean, they also have Malik Willis, though. I think he's a good quarterback.
I think he's a good quarterback.
So I think if they, let him start, maybe get rid of Tannehill. They don't really have a receiving core, though, so it's kind of just.
They should have did that this year.
Yeah, with A.J. Brown still there. Yeah, that's true.
They should have did that.
That's true.
It really should have been an investment more in quarterback and receivers. It's a different league than it was 20 years ago. Derrick Henry's not going to be the guy who pushes you over the hump. It's going to be those kind of bigger skill positions that are really going to come into play.
And then we have the reinstatement of Calvin Ridley after his gambling suspension. That was way too long for what the suspension was for. They're acting like he's Pete Rose. He's Calvin Ridley. I mean, he's gambling on his own team to win games, which I actually think Pete Rose is doing the same thing. But I don't know, it's ridiculous. It's not like he was betting against himself. He wasn't even playing. He was hurt.
Right.
That's a ridiculous suspension, but he'll be good for the Jaguars. So.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how he does on the Jaguars.
Move on, baby.
Geno Smith re-signed with the Seahawks. He got a 3-year, $105 million deal. That's big for him. I don't know if it's big for the Seahawks. I think he's fantastic this year, though. If he can keep up that level of play, I think they'll be very good for a couple seasons to come.
Yeah, I think it's a situation of Geno Smith was kind of a good quarterback during a time when the Seahawks didn't necessarily need one. You know, they were in this rebuilding stage, and then, you know, they get lucky and find this guy who's actually really good with the team. So I see this more as a kind of establishing themselves in Geno and kind of allowing themselves to be better than many people thought they were going to be in the next few seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And look out for this, too. They gave him this extension, but Seahawks have, I believe, the 6th or 7th pick in the draft. Mm-hmm. Look out for them drafting Anthony Richardson to learn from Geno Smith. Look out for that.
Is that the prediction?
Look out for that. That's all I'm saying. Just look out for that.
I don't know about that.
Just look out for it.
Well, moving on to the Raiders, a team that I thought was going to draft Anthony Richardson for a while. They're tagging Josh Jacobs, and I'm hearing that they're looking at Will Levis as their quarterback for the future. Big arm, that's about it. You know, franchise tagging Josh Jacobs is good for them, not good for him. I feel like he wanted to kind of, or if I were him at least, I'd want to go to a new team and kind of figure out what to do because he's a fantastic running back.
Yeah.
He's being held down by that Raiders team, and, you know, I feel bad for the dude, really.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. I mean, obviously we don't know what's going on in his head, but I saw it as more of he kind of wants to maintain the stability he's had over the past few years, and you know, with a quarterback like Will Levis maybe coming in, you know, the team will probably have to rely on the run a lot because, you know, the guy throwing it won't get it done.
Yeah.
So maybe he's just thought of this as maybe an opportunity to get more carries because he knows that the guy throwing the ball won't do it very well.
Yeah,
I just find it funny that the Raiders are letting Derek Carr go just to go right and draft
Yeah.
Will Levis. Like,
Yeah.
that's a downgrade, man.
yeah. They have Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah.
Here you go, Jared.
He played good.
Devontae Adams can't bail you out every game, man.
The Jaguars franchise tagging Evan Ingram. Nothing crazy there. He's fine tight end. He's not a bad player. I don't really know who else they'd use to franchise on, so I think that's a good for them. It's a good franchise tag. I don't really have anything else to add on that one, though.
Solid. That's
Similar to the Cowboys tagging Tony Pollard. Do you have the Cowboys jersey on? I know you're a huge Cowboys fan.
No, I mean, I think it's a good franchise tag. Tony Pollard's obviously a good running back this season. Yeah.
Better than Zeke.
Yeah, way better
better
than
than
Zeke
Zeke.
this season.
Which is almost unfortunate to the fact that they now have these big contracts on 2 running backs because it seems like Jerry Jones doesn't want to admit that he made a mistake with Zeke.
Yeah, he needs to get rid of Zeke somehow.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are not franchise tagging Orlando Brown. That comes as a shock to me because I think he's a pretty good left tackle. And I think he's grown into his own. He had a lot of, you know, he had a really high ceiling, I guess. A lot of people really wanted him to be good coming into the league because his dad was good but before he got injured. It's just, I don't know if I'd get rid of Orlando Brown right now. Maybe they're working on a deal, but I see him probably going somewhere else in free agency. He started off as a Raven, went to the Chiefs, and started thriving as a Chief. I feel like he really got to that ceiling. People were looking at him, and then now it's just kind of falling apart for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just comes back into that whole money situation the Chiefs are dealing with. Obviously, when you're a team like this, you know, a lot of great teams have kind of been destroyed by poor money management. So maybe they're trying to be a bit cautious on that end of the ball. And I guess we'll see how it comes in the next few weeks.
Yeah. And then the Ravens tagging Lamar Jackson. Poor Lamar, man.
Just
Why will
pay
they
him,
just
man.
not give
Just
him
pay him.
give him
pay
his
him.
money? He's worth whatever he's asking for. It's like, what, $400 million over a ton of years. You're going to keep him. He's 26 years old. Unanimous MVP in 2019.
Best quarterback in franchise history. If
Already.
Yeah, like,
He's, I think he's 43-16 in his games he started. And they were terrible this season under Tyler Huntley. It's ridiculous that they will not pay Lamar Jackson. But, you know.
I think Lamar should leave Baltimore. Personally, I would love to see him in Atlanta with Bijan Robinson at running back. I think that'd be amazing for the Falcons.
who's stopping that team?
No one's stopping that team. That's the thing.
Well, the issue with that is Atlanta's no longer looking at Lamar now that it's a non-exclusive contract because I think they believe the Ravens will either match him or they'll have to give up 2 first-round picks, and Atlanta does not need to give up 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, that's the thing. Of this situation, it seems that the only person who really loses here is Lamar Jackson. The Ravens they either get to match any deal they get or they get 2 first rounds.
Yeah.
I think they're perfectly willing to match whatever is going to be. And I don't think a lot of teams are going to really throw a big deal towards Lamar. And it's a weird situation because it's a franchise QB. Like, this is a franchise QB you could build on for a decade. And they're just, like, reluctant to do that. Like, it's like they're against the idea of investing in probably your best player.
Yeah.
At least on offense.
And it's just ridiculous to me. But second best quarterback in the NFC is getting a 4-year, $160 million deal. Danny Don's getting his money. Call him Danny Dollars now. He's bringing in the revenue. Saquon getting tagged. Danny Dobbs coming back. Giant Super Bowl run. Here they come.
If you would have told me when Daniel Jones got drafted that he'd be making this much money, personally, when he entered the draft, it's a quarterback from Duke. I have never heard of a good quarterback come from Duke. Actually, I've never heard of a good football player come from Duke into the NFL.
Yeah.
So,
and I just want the people that's watching, go look at his stats right now and tell me, do you think he deserves $160 million? Go look at his stats right now.
That's a good point. He deserves about $200 million. You know, he's really turned around this team after Eli Manning was gone. Daniel Jones kind of give him, you know, his flowers. He did come in and he really helped this team. He's done a lot for this team in recent years. Bringing the Giants to the playoffs recently is not something I saw happening, and Daniel Jones did a lot to help him get there. And Saquon.
I think that's a bit of an underestimation of the coaching. I mean, Daniel Jones, even his stats this year weren't all that great. I think, obviously, if you get a bit more delusional, $200 million is perfectly realistic. But when we come back to the land of reality, you kind of understand that this is not the kind of contract a QB like Daniel Jones should be getting. It seems almost like an overcorrection, like the ownership saw this good season and thought, you know, let's secure everything now, when really it shouldn't have been the decision. I like the idea of tagging Saquon just because, you know, when he's healthy, he really plays really well. And I think he will stay healthy, and I think there's a good way of securing a playmaker for the future.
Let's move on to the report cards. 1,300 NFL players provided the NFL team facilities, the staff, a bunch of different things come in. Report cards. Vikings, first place among teams, which is a little surprising to me, but I kind of understand it with the season they had this year. I think that franchise does care about their players a lot. Yeah. They seem like, you know, the people they have there seem like they would care. And then Commanders, last with 3 F- grades. That makes more sense to me because the ownership's terrible. The coaching's not great. Ron Rivera's okay, but he's not going to get it done at that team. He never has gotten it done, though. The playing is just bad in general. The players are not great. They have Scary Terry, and then just him, and I guess Chase Young, but, you know.
That's a money laundering scheme down there, honestly.
Yeah, no, they're kind of a joke. But Jaguars reported to have constant rat infestations. Doesn't shock me after their last season. Urban Meyer, he was a rat for that team, so, you know, now having rat infestations, I guess they should probably get that checked out.
Yeah.
That seems like it would be a good thing. But their owners do have other things going on. They have AEW. Tony Khan's really focusing on that, and Shad Khan is helping give money to that. But I feel like he should probably focus on the first business he's owning, and the Jaguars.
Yeah.
It's like I think any F grade is ludicrous in this situation because these are billion-dollar NFL franchises that make hundreds of millions a year, and you're hearing about rat infestations and facilities falling apart. Like, when it comes to the NFL, with the amount of money these players are generating every year, it should really be, an F- should be 10 times what any other sports league has.
That's true.
Like, it seems that, like, an F- grade, and you're like, why did that happen? And they're like, yeah, it was rat infestations. It's like, no one can call an exterminator? Like, what's going on? It's greedy in the worst way. Like, the Cardinals made their only team to do this. They made their own players pay for team meals. And it's almost like, it seems like an insult. Like, you're not even investing in the same people that are making this franchise make all this money. In obviously, I just think it reflects poor ownership. Dan Snyder, you say 3 F- grades, and I'm not saying, oh my God, what a shock. I'm like, Dan Snyder.
Yeah. To be fair, though, these players are also making hundreds of millions of dollars. They expect the top of the top, and I feel like these F- grades, they might kind of be a little fluctuated. Like, I've been in locker rooms that are horrible, and I'm sure they are not as bad as what these guys are saying their locker rooms are. These are still top grade facilities. It's not like these are terrible, rundown areas besides the Jaguars, clear with the rat infestations. Right. But I don't know. It's just the report card thing is still a little ridiculous to me. That was even the thing. The NFL was like, you know what? Let's make these players do report cards. It's like you couldn't have them do something else.
I like the idea just because I think it's good to get the feedback from the people who interact with these organizations the most.
It's interesting. I agree with that. Let's move on to the combine. Anthony Richardson's, he has a huge day. Most athletic quarterback I've seen come out of college in a long time, and he's the most overrated quarterback I've seen come out of college in an even longer time.
He's an athlete. Like, some would say that I'm a hater or preying on Anthony Richardson's downfall, and I, in fact, am preying on his downfall because he does not deserve to be a first-round pick. I don't even think he deserves to be a second-round pick, possibly a third, pushing third, maybe a fourth. He's just, come on, a quarterback that led Florida Gators to lose to Vanderbilt this season, I'm not trusting him on any NFL team right now.
I personally feel like he should have did like another year in Florida. But I will say, to be fair, if he is drafted to the right team in the right situation, I do believe he'll be a solid QB in the near future.
I agree with that. I think if he can go to the right situation, he'll
develop.
Somebody that you can count on. I think he could be a top 10 guy in the NFL. He has a huge arm. He does have a really good arm, and he just
and the athleticism.
He's really athletic, but he's just not like, to me right now, a guy that I'm like, he should go really high. He's a developmental kind of guy.
A lot of mock drafts are having him going first, and of course his odds to be first have gone up. And I'm just sitting there like, how? It just does not make any logical sense to me that he should be the first-round draft pick.
The height.
Yeah.
I kind of see, I understand that there's a lot of doubt, and I can understand why. I see him almost as like Josh Allen a few years ago, where he's a very athletically gifted QB. He's got a lot of these raw tangibles, but you see some of his stats, you see how he performs in some of these games, and you're saying, why would you want this? So I think it comes down to, does he land in the right situation? I think that's, and honestly, in all QBs, I think that's a very important thing that not a lot of people look at. A lot of teams maybe are drafting the QB, but they just don't know how to develop that kind of guy.
And I think Anthony Richardson's similar to this next guy we're about to talk about, Will Levis. I think he's similar to him in that way of, he's a big arm. He has a lot of plays. You're like, oh, he could be something. But at the same time, these are two guys that really need to develop. And I just can't really see either of these guys right now going into the NFL being a starter.
Yeah, I agree.
I 100% agree on that. The only thing I'll say about Will Levis does have a cannon for an arm.
Yeah.
He showed that at the combine, but I don't think he's worth a first-round draft pick either.
Let me remind you, he led the SEC in interceptions in all 7 games and threw for under 100 yards in all 7 games.
That's true.
So
that's true. This season he was not as good as he was, I feel like, season before, or as he was projected to be this season. But, let's move on to the big running back of the draft, Bijan Robinson. Strong performance at the combine. Not a future Falcon, probably a future Eagle to me. He seems like he's an Eagles kind of guy. They could add another back to that run game to really help push them over the edge. I think with a guy like Bijan Robinson, they could have won the Super Bowl this year. Having him and Miles Sanders paired in that backfield with another running threat in Jalen Hurts, as well as Jalen Hurts' passing abilities, I think that team really could have won the Super Bowl this year if they had another guy in the backfield like that. But they could have done a lot to win the Super Bowl still. What do y'all think about Bijan?
I think he's a good running back. Obviously, at the combine, he showed that he is still the top prospect for running back, and nothing's going to change that. I still think he's a top 10 pick. I hope he goes to the Falcons. I feel like he'd be a good pick, a good fit there. But
that'd be the worst pick in Falcons history. Probably the worst move in Falcons history, and that includes trading Brett Favre, because the Falcons need to draft defense, and probably defense as well. So. No,
do you really need defense if Bijan's going to be running up the score?
Yes,
No.
Yes, you do.
I think Bijan's definitely, he's a clearly very talented player, and it's the kind of thing where, not like usually I think with a lot of running back classes, a lot of people put other players above other players just because it's such a hard position to understand, especially when it comes to college players. But Bijan has kind of set himself as that number one back, and you don't really see many people saying the contrary. And as a Panthers fan, nothing would delight me more than seeing the Falcons draft Bijan. But in all honesty, that's not going to happen. That, if that happens, I don't know what I'll do with myself. I will go crazy.
Shut the Falcons down.
Speaking of other players, Jalen Hyatt putting up a strong performance at the combine.
I believe he was ranked as the number one prospect of had the highest grade rating and everything. I think he's a really good wide receiver. I think he'd be a good fit on any team. What are y'all opinions on him?
I like Jalen Hyatt a lot, and a lot of scouts don't seem to like him that much. But I saw him play in high school. I grew up not too far away from where he played, so I think he's a really good player. At Tennessee, he was fantastic this season, but that is with a guy like Hendon Hooker in college. That's a huge arm to throw to a really athletic guy. So it's just, I don't know. I think he'll be fine, but some people doubt him a little bit. They say he's kind of undersized, kind of like a Devontae Smith. I think he's a good receiver, though, so I think he'll do a lot in the league.
We need a wide receiver one in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers, if you stay another year in the Packers, get Jalen Hyatt. We get number 2, baby, and we get number 5.
Who's stopping that
number
team?
5.
Then I'm going to move back to quarterbacks. We have Bryce Young, of course, not throwing at the combine.
He'll be fine.
He's still going to be first.
It's Bryce Young.
He still feels like the number 1 pick. It's either him or C.J. Stroud. It feels like a toss-up unless Anthony Richardson somehow goes 1.
Although Bryce Young might not be able to see over the offensive line, I still think he's going to be a great quarterback.
That really hasn't been a problem for a lot of guys in the league, though. Like these shorter guys we talked about last week, Drew Brees. Yet again, he was fantastic his whole season. Bryce Young, he's kind of one of those tangible guys who can do a lot of things. But and then Clemson defensive players already shining at the combine. They have pro day coming up and going into the draft.
And Brian Brzee in his 40-yard dash ran a 4.9 for a 300-pound guy. That's absolutely insane.
And everyone knows Miles Murphy. He's kind of the next big thing coming out of Clemson. He's a big
That's
deal.
a future Falcon.
Hopefully. Clemson baseball lost in Palmetto Series to USC after a win in night 1. Kind of fell apart in that second game. The bullpen really struggled, and really in both Greenville and in Columbia, the bullpen didn't play great. The team showed some strength, but I don't know.
I think we absolutely have. The coaching is there. It's really just a question of, this is year 1 of a new coach. It's just going to take time. This team has shown flashes, but it's going to take time. And I think that's what needs to be understood. Obviously, I was surprised that we beat them in game 1. I think that speaks to our home field advantage. But this is really just a team that's need to look out for, maybe not focus on the here and now.
Yeah. We'll beat them next year. Hopefully. Clemson men's basketball, now the 3 seed in the ACC tournament. PJ Hall scoring his 1,000 points for Clemson and making the 3rd-team All-ACC, while Hunter Tyson makes the 1st-team All-ACC. Are they in or out of the NCAA tournament right now?
I feel like as long as we beat NC State, I feel like obviously that's who we're going to be playing in the ACC tournament. I don't see NC State losing to either Notre Dame or Virginia Tech. If we put up a good fight against NC State and win, I think we deserve to be in.
I believe so as well. I agree.
The entire situation's a bit ludicrous, though. The only team to be finished 3rd in the ACC and not make it since 1985 was Virginia in 2000. We've had 23 years of these teams making it, so it seems silly that we're even considering Clemson being on the bubble when they've shown that they are a talented team. They've performed well again and again, and it just, if we were Duke, if we were the Blue Devils, they wouldn't be a question. And especially when you consider this is a team that was projected to be bottom 4 of the ACC. We performed well above expectations. We've beaten big teams, and the only reason we're not in is because we're Clemson.
Yep.
This is probably one of the best Clemson basketball teams of all time. Right. Even saying, though, the ACC has been a little on the weaker side this year, but I think it's robbery if we don't get in.
ACC is not a top-heavy conference, but they're heavy throughout. The 1 through 8 are all very strong teams that could do a lot of damage to teams in March Madness if given the opportunity. Right. Keeping with basketball, though, the NBA, let's get a little breakdown of what's going on this week. 18 players with 30 points on Sunday. That's the most in NBA history. That kind of just shows to me the scoring that has been happening in the NBA more and more frequently and more recently. there's guys who can score from anywhere now, and it's kind of ridiculous just the numbers that are put up you see on these games. Like we talked about last week, the Clippers-Kings game, that's a lot of points. And it feels like games like that happen frequently nowadays.
Yeah, the Grizzlies just had a 51-point third quarter. Like, who does that?
Yeah, it really just speaks to how the league has changed,
Right.
especially over recent years. It's just a lot more scoring now.
And there's a lot less defense, it feels like, with the scoring, but
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
bound
the
to happen.
evolution of the
yeah, it's
game
going to happen.
in a way. The Bucks, their 16-game winning streak gets snapped by the 76ers. Thoughts on that?
Yes. I am so glad their winning streak's over. You know, it feels good. As a Celtics fan, it feels good. You know, the East there's a lot of top-heavy teams right now, and it feels good knowing that the Bucks are losing again. It's nice to see that, especially with the Celtics' recent losses, 3 rough losses in a row, 2 huge leads, and then losing in overtime. And then, I don't know, it's nice to see the Bucks lose.
And then you got Batman at
Grant
the free throw
Williams,
line
yeah.
talking about, I'm going to make both, and then he
Misses
makes
both.
of them.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah, no, it's
The Grant Williams, I know.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the teams that beat the Celtics in this 3-game streak, the Knicks on a 9-game winning streak. What do you see out of the Knicks right now?
As much as I do not like the Knicks, I promise you I really do not like this team, but they've been on fire as of late, and I just got to give credit where it's due. They're going to give a lot of teams some trouble in the playoffs. If Julius Randle decides to be a good player this time, go around in the playoffs.
You know, they call him Mr. Consistency for a reason. By they, I mean
Mr.
me.
Inconsistency. Yeah.
John Morant, off court, South Carolina kid, you know, I hate to see it.
it's terrible.
I'm not a fan of him.
It's upsetting. I've been a fan of him since his run with Murray State in the tournament, and you know, it's sad to see you have a player with so much potential, and he's pretty much wasting all this potential. Like, he's a great player. I just don't understand why he would do stuff to put him in the position that he's in now.
Yeah, it's
There's no need.
It's just an unfortunate situation. You know,
Yeah.
it's just you hate to see it. You
Like,
hate to
multiple
see it.
people would take his spot where he is right now in life. Tons of people would, and then he's just wasting it.
Yeah, it seems like he's kind of going just backwards in life. He's made it, and now he's just, you know, he's falling
Yeah,
out.
rather than trying to be like Gilbert Arenas, let's just focus on basketball,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, the Suns and Mavericks, their rivalry's heating back up. Not shocking to me, especially with now Kyrie and KD on opposing teams. It's nice to see that their rivalry is going strong. Another strong rivalry in the NBA. I think that's all we got for basketball. Let's move on to a little UFC. Chris, you're our UFC aficionado here.
Yeah.
Take it away. What do you have?
John Jones, the GOAT. I don't want to hear about George St. Pierre. I don't want to hear about Anderson Silva, Demetrius Johnson. I don't want to hear that. This is the GOAT. This man has not fought in 3 years and just came back and won in the first round by submission by one of the most dangerous heavyweights known the man, and just submitted him like it was nothing.
And another guy winning in the first round by submission, Bo Nickel.
Yeah. He gets some striking.
This guy's got
He
it.
gets some striking. It's over with.
This guy's got it.
I will say the John Jones fight especially. It's as someone who doesn't watch it the sport very often. You know, that first round, it doesn't seem there was like too much action going on. They're really feeling each other out, and then he like explodes, and then you know he's on the ground, and you're thinking, okay, well, like what are we can see? He's gonna break out of this, like this, and then he taps, and then you're just sitting there like, first round.
Did that just happen?
Match is over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to see that. You really don't expect that with a lot. I feel like with a lot of combat sports like that. So it was a match to watch.
And another did that just happen moment of the night. Valentina losing her 6-year title reign.
Yeah, I will say I caught this 2 months ago. I said she would lose, and it was part of me thinking this was her last performance. She really didn't win her last fight. She looked slow, old, and it kind of showed when she made a mistake here in this fight, trying to do a spin kick, and she got caught and submitted.
Yep.
Unfortunate.
I mean, it was a great show overall, though. I really enjoyed what I was watching. We had a good time watching it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you did
Yeah,
back
I
home. Let's get into overtime, Nash. I know you want to talk a little.
Yeah. So taking from your Creed 3 overtime last week, I want to talk about my personal favorite sports film, the sports film Major League. It's a baseball movie about the Cleveland Guardians in the 90s. Basically, they get this new owner who was the wife of the former owner, and she wants to move the team out of Cleveland because it's Cleveland, and she wants to move the team to Miami. But the only way she can do that is if the team's average attendance throughout the season is low enough. So what she does is she assembles this ragtag group of ball players who are all really bad, and she's thinking the team will tank, they'll be terrible. And the entire film is about these guys coming together and playing good baseball. It's an entertaining movie. It's the classic sports story of a bunch of guys that you really don't think are going to do anything, and then they come together, and there's all these weird quirks. Charlie Sheen's this pitcher out of like prison, and he can't see anything. They get him in glasses, and he becomes Wild Thing, and he takes out all these other batters, and it's one of those sports stories that it makes you love the sport even if you don't watch it.
What a film. What a film, really. Chris, I know you want to talk about, your favorite basketball player.
One of, but who was LeBron talking about last night, saying that Bronny is better than a lot of these guys in the NBA right now? Because it could have been any of those teams last night. He could have been talking about that Detroit Pistons team because they have like Best Buy managers.
I think we know who he's talking about. It's that team down in Houston. That team right there. That's who he's talking about because they are terrible.
But he was talking about some teams playing last night. Somebody on the Pelicans was apparently shooting like 1 for 7 last night, so he could have been talking about him.
It's possible. Bronny's now a 5-star though.
Yeah.
So good on him.
Yeah.
I mean,
Great promotion.
He's been impressive. I want to talk a little Tom Brady. There's been coming out of retirement again, rumors for some reason to go to Miami, but he cleared it up on Twitter, saying he will not be coming out of retirement because he's a cat dad. Just bought a cat for his daughter. Good on him.
Yeah.
He's going to his family. He seems he's happy in retirement, and now he's a cat dad. So I'm starting to become a Tom Brady fan now that he's retired.
Yeah, now he's no longer playing. I like it just because he's nothing left to prove. His last season wasn't all that great, and while I think it would be funny for him to unretire another time, it's just not happening.
No.
I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
We don't want to see that, man.
And now, Riley, I know you want to go in your hating rant, as you usually
for the
do.
third week in a row, this has started to become my favorite pastime, is disliking and hating on the Pac-12. It's just a lot of fun to me. So if you Pac-12 fan again, just give up. It's a dying conference. The Big 12 has reached out to Arizona State, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado to join the Big 12. The Big 12 was a conference that everyone thought was going to die once Texas and Oklahoma left. Now it's turning into a super conference, and Pac-12 has taken its place.
I don't know if I'd say a super conference, but
But
they're coming
they're
into
teams.
they're gaining teams and becoming a mediocre conference again. They gained a bunch of guys from these non-Power 5 schools, and now they're gaining kind of the bottom feeders of the Pac-12 and Utah. Obviously, I'm a fan of Utah, so they are gaining a good team in Utah and Deion Sanders' Colorado team possibly. So that's exciting. Those teams in Arizona.
With Deion Sanders being at Colorado, that's the only reason they reached out to Colorado, because
Colorado's been kind of decent for a couple years in football. They've had moments they were good.
But I think it's
one-loss team last year. I mean, one-win team last
Yeah,
year.
they only won one game
What decent
last year,
team
man.
are you guys talking about? You must be watching different college
A couple
football.
years ago.
Okay,
a few years ago, they were a legitimate team who had a chance to do something, and then they played Colorado football, and now they're the Colorado we know, a one-win team with Deion Sanders as their head coach now.
I see it more as a kind of a just writing on the wall. Pac-12 is,
They're doomed.
they're doomed. Maybe get out while you still can, but I guess we'll see it play out in the coming months and weeks, years.
I think that's it. Thank you all for watching, and hopefully we will see you next week.